Have you ever looked around at your life and thought, I should be happy? I have a family, I have kids, I have a career, I have a house, I have responsibilities. So, why do I feel like something is missing? What if that something missing is you? Today, we're talking about something that has completely shifted how I think about motherhood, success, and building a life that I love. We're talking about finding yourself again. Welcome back to Struggle and Strength Moms Balancing It All with Nikki. If you're new here, I'm Nikki. I'm a mom of three, a chief operating officer in a healthcare IT company, an entrepreneur, building my digital marketing agency, and my chief mom officer business, a soccer coach, used to be, gave that up about 2 years ago. Actually, no, it's only been a year. And someone who has spent most of my life trying to show up for everyone else. And today I want to share something that hit me like a ton of bricks. So, a few days ago, I was working through some self discovery exercises and I started reading this book that has really kind of opened up my eyes. Now, these weren't productivity exercises, they weren't business exercises, they weren't even goal setting exercises. It was self discovery. And I realized something. Most moms aren't overwhelmed because they need a better planner. Most moms are overwhelmed because they've forgotten who they are. We've spent years becoming experts on everyone else, anticipating needs before they happen. We know our kids' favorite foods. We know our husband's work schedule better than he does. We know our boss's expectations. We know everyone's needs. But when someone asks us, "What do you want?" we freeze because nobody has asked us that question in years, besides, of course, on Mother's Day or our birthday. And it's like, look, I don't want to tell you what I want on Mother's Day or for my birthday. I want you to know me and know what I need, right? Of course, that's like every mother's dream that her husband actually knows exactly what to get her without having to ask. Because what happens every single day? Husband asks wife, "What's going on today? What do we have? What's the schedule? What's for dinner?" And we always have to answer. And we have to be creative. We have to make plans every single day. Our to do list in our head just never ends. But that to do list is very little ever about us, right? In my to do list, I have all these things that need to be get done, but nowhere in there is the fact that I need to take care of myself. So I started thinking about all the labels that I've carried: mom, wife, COO, entrepreneur, soccer coach, volunteer, sister. And while all these things are true, none of them are actually me. They're just roles. And I think a lot of moms accidentally become the role. We become so focused on serving everyone else that we stop developing ourselves. Let's pause and think about that for a second. If all your roles disappeared tomorrow, who would be standing there? When you go to introduce yourself and you say, "Hi, I'm Nikki. I am blah." What is that? What do you say? Most of the times I start off with, "I'm a pharmacist," which I'm not really. Like, I haven't really acted like a pharmacist in over 8 years, but that's the first thing that comes out of my mouth. And then, of course, it's like, "Oh, I've got 3 kids. My husband's over there," or my husband's and we were just at a party last night, and that's how it went. "Yes, that's my husband over there. I've got 3 kids. They're all 16 months apart. We had 3 under 3. I'm a pharmacist." And it's like, ugh. One of the most powerful exercises that I completed this week was writing my autobiography. Not because I needed a book, but because I needed to see the patterns, the recurring themes, the things that have always been true about me that I can never list off or answer or remember. And what discovered was fascinating. The strengths that I have today were visible when I was a little girl. The values I have today were visible decades ago. And the dreams that I have today have actually been there all along. I just got too busy to notice, and I could never focus on myself. Your autobiography helps reveal childhood patterns, recurring themes, values, strengths, wants, and ultimately the life that you're trying to build. So, when's the last time that you ever even thought about your autobiography? Never for me. This was a very first, and it was because I was reading this book. And I've been so confused lately on what I should do, who I should be, what business I should do, why I act the way I do. Is this something that I've developed over the years, or has this been there all along? I just, I never stopped to think about myself. And more importantly, the majority of my childhood, I completely forgot. Not because I was traumatized in any sort of fashion, nothing bad like that, at least I don't think or can remember. Of course, childhood memories have their ups and downs. Not everyone's life was perfect. Of course, I didn't grow up like little Annie, orphan Annie either. I had 3 brothers who beat me up all the time. I mean, not necessarily in that fashion, but when we played sports, they just treated me like one of the boys, and I had bruises all over myself. I had amazing friendships that have lasted still to this day. I have 2 friends that are twins. They've been my best friends since I was 4 years old. We're 2 days apart in birth. And every time we talk, it feels so good because it's like catching up where we left off, although we're so much older now and have kids. And it's like thinking about our lives growing up, we had the best of times. We lived probably like a mile apart. We would play together all the time on the weekends, have slumber parties or sleepovers, things that I don't even allow my kids to do now just because the world is so different. But those things don't come up unless you're prompted to think about them. It's like I can barely even think about what I did yesterday, let alone 40 years ago. I know, I'm over 40. Can you believe that? It's crazy. I keep every time I say it, I'm like, "Seriously?" No, I'm like still in my 20s. But I've become convinced that there are 6 things that every mom needs to know. And the first one, the number 1 is your story. What patterns keep repeating themselves? And after that, number 2 is your assets. What gifts did you come into this world already carrying? It's so funny how our vision of ourselves changes over time. Because I think about my kids and what they're going through, and life right now is totally perfect and it's normal, and they have very cares in the world. However, that's when they're at home. Now, when they go to school, what starts happening? Or sports. We start comparing ourselves. And why? Because we see things maybe other people have and maybe we don't, or, maybe I like your curly hair versus my straight hair, or that your clothes look cuter than mine, or all these different thoughts that start going into it, creeping into our minds. You're better at sports than I am, or, you know, different things that shape who we start to become. And I remember my feelings when I was in middle school and high school because doing your autobiography, you have to start thinking about that. Who were you friends with? Were you in the popular crowd? What did you do? What did you wear? Like all these different things. And the memory that keeps popping up in my mind is how dorky I was. Like, we had these middle school dances, and I remember one of my best friends, we would be in, like, the back corner doing, like, dance moves, and we made our own, like, dance up, basically. And I'm sure everybody else looking at us was like, "Oh, those dorks in the corner with their making their own cool things." But that's our imagination, our creativity, and instead of being, praised for that, I think about, how nerdy I probably looked. But I probably should be thinking, "Wow, like, that was awesome. I have no dance skills whatsoever." And there I was creating dance moves and, like, a routine with my friend. I also did that with my brother. I remember the song. It was, "Good day, sunshine, ba-da-dum," and we would jump on our parents' bed, like, jump up, touch the ceiling, jump down, do a seat drop. I still remember, and that was, oh my gosh, probably, like, 40 years ago when we started that. But those are, like, the good old days, but the things that you start thinking about when you start writing your autobiography and the gifts that you had when you came into this world, I mean, those things you don't necessarily pick. They just happen. Your hair color, your eye color, your body style, all of that is just what God's gift to you was. Your parents, they created you. But then we start not liking those things and trying to change those things. And we start trying to control our life. So the next one on the list, our number 3, is your values. What matters most to you? And this one's hard because over the years, those values change. And your values now may or may not be what they were when you were a child or growing up. But there also could be some recurring patterns that are in your life that you're not really seeing. After our values comes our strengths. Number 4 is your strength. What do you naturally do better than most people? I just wrote a book. I'm super proud of it. It's called Connection Before Correction. Gosh, there's like a little subtitle to it that I don't remember what I put on it. I think it's like the overwhelmed mom's guide to raising independent, kind, caring individuals in this disconnected world. I think that's what it was. But I'm super proud of it because every single time that I meet somebody or see other moms, they always ask me, like, "How do you do it?" When I was a soccer coach, they're like, "How do you do all these things? How are you and your kids are so amazing." And it's not to brag, I'm not here to boast about anything, but ultimately, I don't know, like, so I wrote this book with all the things that I do because it was really hard to pinpoint, this is the exact thing that I do that creates amazing children. It's a culmination of things. There's 5 pillars that are in the book, and it basically goes over everything that I did with my kids, and those are my strengths. I love my kids more than anything in this world, and I want the very best for them, just like my parents wanted for me. And I want them to be kind individuals who are just nice. Like yesterday, we were at this party and there was a group of girls, and my son, I asked him, "How's it going? How's everything?" And he's like, "Mommy, those girls are so mean." Now he's a 9-year-old boy, and you think mostly boys are mean, right? But apparently there were some water balloons, and the girls got the water balloons and they stashed them away and didn't want anybody else to have them. And so when he went over there just to even try and get his goggles, which were in the vicinity of the water balloons, they yelled at him and told him to get away because he wasn't allowed back there and he got upset. Now, typically, I would assume that that's boys' behavior. However, these were little girls and they were hoarding their water balloons so that nobody else could have them. And so it's interesting to see the dynamics that happen, especially when you're not around, you're just observing because, my son could have ran over there and stole a water balloon, but he's being polite and he's trying to ask politely, "May I please have a water balloon?" And they say no, and then he gets upset and, you know, it's so interesting to watch that. And my intentions were to create kind, independent humans, and I feel like I've done a really good job doing that. And so those are some of my strengths. I'm an achiever. I love helping people. Um, I do that a lot, probably more than I should. And I need to really set up some boundaries. We talked about all these different things on several of our last podcast episodes. There's a lot of things that we do naturally that just come to us that, for other people, it doesn't happen like that. And that's okay because every person in the world is so unique with our own skills and strengths and assets. And that's what makes you you. And I love being me. I love being unique. It's actually funny because there's several times in my life where people have, I don't wanna say copied, but they've done the same things that I've done, and it makes me feel super uncomfortable because it's like, "No, that's me, that's my behavior, that's not you." Um, and I should take it as flattery, but at the same time, it's like, I wanna be me, and I only want to be me, and I don't want other people to be me. So, anyways, I'm blabbing on about my strengths, but at the same time, so number 4, your strengths. Number 5 is your wants, and this is big. Because this is where we as moms fall short because we don't really think about our wants. It's like when you go into, well, when I used to go into like blockbuster movies, I'm dating myself right here, and go and pick out a movie and you're like, oh, I don't know what to watch. I can't remember what I wanted to see. Or when you go to the CD store and you're like, oh, what's my favorite song? And you sing it all the time, but you can't remember it when you're in there. That's what it is when somebody says, "What do you want? What do you want for your birthday? What do you want for Mother's Day? What do you wanna do?" It's like, I don't know. I make so many decisions every single day, like, I can't even think about myself. And so we need to understand, what do we truly want? How big or small or absurd that want is, you need to understand what you want, not what everybody else wants, but what you want. And then the last one is your legacy. How do you want to be remembered? This one was really hard. Putting in, I I guess it's called your epitaph. Hopefully I'm saying that properly, but it's, what do you want them to say at your funeral? And it's not in a morbid fashion. You're not thinking about you dying, but it's like, what do you want? What do you want your kids to remember you by? What do you want your husband to remember you? Like, how do you want to be remembered in the world? And those are the exact foundations of the who are you really? Because self-knowledge becomes before systems. And if you don't know who you are or what you want, it's hard to build your values. It's hard to, you know, abide by your values. It's hard to think about your strengths and all these different things, and why you do the things you do if you don't really understand who you truly are. And I feel like we as moms get lost in the world because we grow up, nobody gives us a life book of how to grow up. Then you go to college, or you may not go to college, you start going into the workplace, and it's like there's no life book that tells you exactly the perfect way to do life. I mean, that's the beauty of it. We all have our ups and downs, our bumps and bruises along the way. And somewhere along that way, we tend to forget who we are, or we change who we are. Or we no longer like the things we used to like, or maybe we do, we just don't know. Or maybe the people who influenced us are no longer in our lives, or we have new people in our lives who are influencing our decisions. And so I feel like if we really know who we truly are inside as a person, born at birth, all throughout life, our strengths, our values, our assets, you're really going to understand, okay, what do I truly want for my future? And this has been huge because here's what I think happens is that most of us, if we go through a program or we get coached or we get help, they start with like the planner, the calendar, the routine, the checklist. But those things only work if they're built around the right person. Otherwise, you're trying to live somebody else's life. Like, my schedule isn't going to work for you. The things that I value in our lives are not going to work for you in your life. And eventually, our world collapses because we're taking advice from our friends, and our friends are like, oh, you got to do this. This is what I do. But yeah, that works for you, but it doesn't necessarily work for my life because it's not designed for me. And so, as our autobiography work gets highlighted, we can start building systems that actually work for our lives. So, let's say for you, your calendar is the biggest, hardest thing to ever plan because you got five different calendars in all different directions, and you got all these kids and they're doing all different kinds of activities, and it's driving you bonkers to the point where you're just like, I just want to scream and rip my hair out because I can't take another day of this crazy schedule of here, there, and everywhere. Then we need to sit back and figure out, okay, why is your schedule jam packed full? And this was me. This was us. This was my family about 2 months ago before we went on our Alaskan cruise. Our schedule was chaotic. And we had to really step back and think, where are our values? What is the purpose of all of this? And where are we going in life? And does it really matter if we jam pack our schedules filled right now? Is that going to get us to where we want to be 5, 10 years from now? So this week, I want to challenge you to take 15 minutes, grab a notebook, or go to your favorite chat, GPT, Claude, Perplexity, whatever you want to do, and answer these questions. Who was I before everyone needed me? What did I love as a child? What comes naturally to me? What do I want? And how do I want my life to be remembered? Don't worry about getting perfect answers. Just start because finding yourself isn't about becoming somebody new. It's about remembering who you've been all along. In my autobiography that I did it with Claude. Oh my gosh, it brought me to tears because all along I've been the same person. I thought I was different, but the values and everything that I needed clarity on has been there my whole entire life. Can you believe that? So exciting. But it gave me so much more clarity in life and what I want. So if today's episode resonated with you, I would love to hear from you. Send me a message and tell me what's the one thing you've forgotten about yourself that you want to rediscover. And thank you so much for spending time with me today. And remember, Mama, you're more than your to do list. You're more than your responsibilities, and you're more than the roles that you play. You're still in there, and she's worth finding again.